What in the world is causing these crypto spikes and crash events? 2025 is shaping up to be one of the most chaotic yet opportunistic years for crypto, and the story behind the latest crash is wild, counterintuitive, and frankly, shocking. According to crypto analyst Tom Lee, the recent downturn in Bitcoin, Ethereum, and the broader market isn't about weak fundamentals, market sentiment, or macro fears. It's actually rooted in a software bug. Yes, you heard that right. A glitch in the system, an error in the code that triggered automated selling and cascaded into one of the most brutal market shakeups we've seen in years. Buckle up, my friends. This is going to be huge. So I need you, the amazing viewers, to get your coffees, get comfortable, and let's dive in. Hit the like button so this video reaches other amazing people just like you, and hit the subscribe button so you never miss an important update in the market. Now, amazing XRP army, let's get right into the video. Tom Lee has broken it down step by step, showing how a stablecoin mispricing sparked a chain reaction that wiped out millions of accounts across exchanges. If you've got friends or family in crypto, this is critical. This is the kind of event that blindsides investors who think market crashes are always predictable. To understand why this happened, we have to rewind to October 10th. That day marked one of the largest deleveraging events in crypto in the last 5 years. Market makers, the players who essentially act like central banks in crypto, providing liquidity, matching buyers and sellers, and stabilizing markets, were crippled. When the market experienced extreme liquidation, these institutions were forced to shrink their balance sheets reflexively. Every drop in price triggered more automated selling, which in turn triggered further drops. Tom Lee likens this to the 2022 liquidation cycle, but emphasizes that the October 10th flush wasn't a normal crash. It was a structural breakdown in the automated systems that underpin crypto markets. It wasn't hype, it wasn't panic. It was code interacting with leverage in unexpected ways. The real ignition point was a stablecoin called Athena's USDE on Binance. This stablecoin, which should have stayed pegged at $1, briefly dropped to 65 cents on October 10th due to liquidity discrepancies within the exchange. That's catastrophic in an ecosystem built on leverage. If your collateral suddenly drops 40% in value, automated liquidation systems kick in. Tom Lee explains that this triggered an ADL, or auto-deleveraging process, that rippled across exchanges and wiped out almost 2 million accounts, even accounts that had been profitable minutes earlier. What started as a temporary mispricing became a systemic event, illustrating just how fragile leveraged crypto markets are when automation fails to interpret context. This was not a flaw in Bitcoin, Ethereum, or any major protocol. It was a failure in the automation built on top of them. Here's where it gets even more interesting. Market makers themselves were impacted in a cascading feedback loop. As the ADL process wiped out accounts, liquidity dried up. These market makers, who provide depth and stability, suddenly had holes in their balance sheets. To cover themselves, they had to reduce exposure, which meant selling even more, reinforcing the price drop. Tom Lee compares this to a reflexive weakening. As the market falls, selling triggers more selling. We saw this pattern unfold over several weeks following October 10th, mirroring the multi-week liquidation cycles seen in previous events, including the 2022 market crash and the Terra Luna collapse. In essence, the system itself magnified the original bug into a market-wide cascade. Automated systems like ADL are supposed to protect traders and exchanges from overexposure. But here's the problem. They act mechanically, not contextually. Athena's mispricing should have been treated as a temporary anomaly. Instead, the algorithm saw a drop in collateral, triggered liquidation, and spread across other accounts. No human intervention was involved in stopping this. No discretionary judgment was applied. That's why the crash looks so extreme. Nearly 2 million positions were liquidated in minutes. Tom Lee's insight highlights a critical point for investors. This was not a protocol failure. It was an automation failure. The underlying technology, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, Cardano, is working exactly as intended. The failure was in the financial plumbing built on top of the protocols. Some might call this a glitch, but Tom Lee insists that's a misnomer. A glitch implies a minor, easily fixable error. This was a structural automation failure comparable to Wall Street crises in 1987 and 2009. where automated systems and collateral mechanisms triggered cascades across markets. Portfolio insurance in 1987, subprime mortgage collateral in 2009, these are analogs. In crypto, the ADL system didn't pull an aggregate across exchanges. It relied on internal quotes, which is why Athena's mispricing triggered such a dramatic cascade. It's a coding and design oversight, not a failing of blockchain technology itself. Understanding this distinction is crucial for anyone interpreting price action. This is why the crash seems irrational, but is actually logical if you understand market mechanics. Let's break down the timeline. On October 6th or 7th, Bitcoin was hitting $125,000. By October 10th, the flush occurred, dropping collateralized accounts. And by mid-November, Bitcoin is around $86,000. Over just 6 weeks, automated systems compounded the stress from the original shock. Compare this to 2022. The liquidation cycle took 8 weeks to fully play out. What Tom Lee emphasizes is that these events are not just one-offs. They expose the fragility of leverage and automation in crypto. This isn't the start of a fundamental collapse in blockchain tech. It's a temporary technical shock amplified by human-designed financial systems running automated rules at scale. What does this mean for market makers? These entities act as the backbone of crypto liquidity. When their balance sheets are hit, they reflexively shrink trading, which reduces market depth, increases spreads, and forces them to sell to cover positions. This is exactly what happened after October 10th. The system was technically functioning as programmed, but the programming didn't account for cross-exchange anomalies in stablecoins. Tom Lee calls this a bug, not a hack, not a fraud, just a coding and structural oversight that has cascading consequences for leveraged traders and institutional liquidity providers. In short, market makers got caught in a loop where automated processes forced them to sell into a falling market. The lesson here is that crashes in crypto are not always about sentiment or fundamentals. They can be pure technical cascades triggered by leverage and automation. ADL systems are designed to protect exchanges but can inadvertently amplify price moves. Tom Lee notes that almost everything that liquidated was automated, reacting to collateral drops and price misalignments. Traders and institutions were forced sellers, even when underlying assets were fundamentally fine. The only problem was the automation misreading temporary isolated pricing issues. This insight is vital for retail investors. Understanding when a price drop is technical rather than fundamental creates strategic opportunity. From a retail perspective, this crash is actually a buying opportunity. Nothing is wrong with the underlying protocols. Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cardano, Solana, all working as intended. The cascade is over collateralized positions and automated market mechanisms. Once liquidity stabilizes and market makers recover, the forced selling pressure will subside. Tom Lee emphasizes that investors who recognize this distinction between structural automation failure and protocol failure can take advantage of the mispricing. The market is reacting to short-term technical errors, not long-term structural issues. Patience and discipline are your allies here. Finally, if you've made it this far, understand the broader takeaway. Crashes like this highlight how intertwined automation, leverage, and liquidity are in crypto markets. Nothing here undermines blockchain technology itself. The event is a mini black swan, triggered by a coding oversight, amplified by automated liquidation, and exacerbated by market maker balance sheet pressures. For disciplined investors, this is a moment to evaluate opportunities, differentiate technical shocks from fundamental issues, and position for the next leg up in Bitcoin, Ethereum, and selective altcoins. Knowledge is power, and understanding the mechanics behind October 10th could redefine your investment edge. At the end of the day, Tom Lee's insight is clear. This is not a protocol failure. It's a systemic automation bug. Market makers were forced to sell, accounts were liquidated, and liquidity temporarily dried up. Yet the underlying technology remains robust. For investors who recognize this distinction, the October 10th event is a strategic buying opportunity. The market is limping, yes, but once the automated processes recalibrate and forced selling subsides, the underlying crypto ecosystem stands strong. If you've watched this whole breakdown, comment "Purple Grape" to let me know you made it through. This is how we separate observers from informed participants.